20 years ago, when agriculture still lived in print, one website went digital. Today, that idea connects thousands of producers, suppliers, and leaders in the pork industry every day. I'm Dan Simmons with Continental Search, and this is 20 Years of Swine Web. My guest is the founder himself, Jim Eadie. Jim, congratulations on 2 decades of building something that's changed the conversation.
I appreciate your time today, Dan. Thanks for your support over the years, the relationship we've built, and your 30 years at Continental Search.
It's a pleasure to be here with you today. If you've ever checked a headline, watched a video, or listened to a podcast about pork, chances are Swine Web was somewhere in the mix. Today, we'll rewind to where it all began. Look at how Jim built a digital ecosystem before that was even a buzzword. And we'll hear what's next for his flagship platform. Jim, let's start at day one.
So, when we started this 20 years ago, Dan, that was kind of the era when digital content was more mainstream. And we saw an opportunity in the market. And I'll go back to the sports industry for a second. In the late 90s, ESPN launched a portal in the sports industry with news, commentary, sports scores, live information, multiple tools to get access to your favorite information. Where back in the day, you used to have to listen to sports radio talk shows if you got a frequency, different programs, and it was hard to get information. So, with that knowledge, as I entered the swine market, I saw a gap where the only form of communication was print ads. And I saw the technologies that the web offered, where you could get timely, accurate information out to a targeted audience. And growing up on a 99-acre farm and working in the industry at a young age, I thought this would be a great opportunity to streamline communication and have effective media company.
What problem did you see in the industry 20 years ago that no one was solving?
Well, based just on communication, what I saw was people placed ads in a magazine, and that was effective marketing, or that's how it was. And the problem I see from that is through a digital platform, if we're going to announce a new product, we could announce that new product instantly through the digital platform, through Swine Web, through WordPress, through different website sources. So I thought a quicker access to information, because going back to the sports industry for a minute, you used to get the morning paper delivered at your
Yeah.
doorstep. And that sometimes the game that went late, you didn't see the score in the newspaper. And so seeing that online kind of sparked the vision for Swine Web, where in the pork industry or the agriculture industry or other sectors, we want to have more timely, accurate information. And then going back to the print ad aspect, is I feel like there's higher communication opportunities through digital storytelling, digital brand awareness, different ways to reach people than just a creative ad. And the creative ad goes back to building brands for decades, even in print and TV. It's how successful brands were built. But with digital technologies and digital platform, we had that forward thinking opportunity of helping customers as well communicate more digitally savvy.
Paint the scene for us. Where were you? Who encouraged you? And when did you realize you were really onto something?
So I was in London, Ontario, and worked for a dot-com company in agriculture, started their online media business. I met a bunch of people in the pork industry, and there was kind of that need. There was people doing blogs and commentaries at that time, but there was no digital ecosystem in North America to communicate beyond print media. So, I met a bunch of people. One person, again, like Jim Long, writes a famous commentary. He kind of urged, why don't you start Swine Web and kind of start that digital portal? And it really sparked the enthusiasm that someone had the confidence in that opportunity. And then kind of the dream again at that time was everybody like now it's web apps, there's social influencing apps. Everybody has their time of what's new in technology. And my era was digital content. So it was kind of a dream to run a digital news portal. Because I watch the 6 o'clock news. You want to be involved in that kind of thing. You see the ESPN. So because of that and working with different stakeholders and getting some customers early on, we saw that as kind of the launching pad. And when we realized we were onto something, we started another site, farmershowcase.com back then too. It was like a virtual trade show. So it's kind of what Amazon is, but it was more of a trade show for agriculture with products online. So comparing that to Swine Web hit it off because it was easier to explain because pork producers use Swine Web for timely information based on raising pigs, news, and markets, where Farmer Showcase was very hard to explain. So we realized we were onto something when some of the bigger sustainable companies started getting involved in swine web because we had a direct reach of their target audience and they saw the value in that transition of media.
You have some other sites too, don't you?
Yeah, we've got dairyproducer.com, beefweb.com, and poultryproducer.com. We expanded that infrastructure 8 to 9 years ago because Swine Web, what we wanted to do is be a boutique publisher focused on the best content, building a community, a database, and something very direct. So with that model, we wanted to launch into the other species. We thought that was the best way to go rather than a consolidated portal because our focus again was be niche, boutique, directly hit a target audience and not have it a confusing offer like the farmer showcase, where people know if you're in the poultry industry, the dairy industry, you're using these platforms. And the key essence is authentic communication and storytelling journey.
What was the toughest part early on? The technology, the content, building trust, getting your name out there?
It was building relationships because some of the big media companies in the US have been around for decades and it's been a print journey. So I think it's been building the relationships and the trust with people to know that you have a tangible product and then getting them on board with the concept because agriculture is always a little bit behind other sectors. So explaining that, hey, I'm reaching a pig producer in Iowa and we have his email and he's following us on Twitter and he uses our platform, it was hard for people to get their head wrapped around at that time. So it was building the relationships and the trust of what digital is because it took even 5 to 10 years for people to even accept that digital was moving in the right direction and people use digital. So it took a long time to build that sustainability.
Tell me one decision early on that you're really grateful for.
Really sticking with the value of being a digital only company because at the time there were some other companies that were doing like some magazines and they were doing digital things like that. And we wanted to focus on the efficiency of communication. So sticking it out with the daily habit of building out the content every day, building the database, researching the social apps, researching different ways to reach producers. So just the consistency with the vision because the entire vision again was hit the target market, create great content, and make it easy for people to get information. So it was sticking with that vision of being a digital only company and then building around that to create a sustainable ecosystem.
There have been a lot of sites that launch and fade. Very few become daily habits. What did you do to make Swine Web part of people's daily routine?
It was just going back to that philosophy of every day is an opportunity to build and get better and keep stacking the good days and keep building towards the infrastructure that you want. So it was finding processes to get people to send us content, to find content, to create content. So it was building that habit of doing it every single day, building the habit of creating a newsletter that started monthly, then weekly, then daily. It was building the habit of adding tools to the website, like an app, a podcast, a job board, um, different content sections, different things like a Hall of Fame. So I think it's just you got to write your plan down, you got to build it, you got to be consistent, and just doing that every day with the vision of efficiency and content and then refining who our users are.
You mentioned launching a newsletter. There was some social media that you jumped on at some point. What really moved the needle for you?
Um, Well, there's a couple things. It was building trust with people in the industry that they know that we're a hardworking, viable company that their customers use. Um, the social media in the early days really benefited us on Twitter. There was a lot of producers on Twitter. There's less now. They're more on LinkedIn, but building up a following of like over 10,000 followers allowed us to market ourselves to these directly to a producer because I saw it when we launched in 2009 on Twitter when Twitter was like brand new, and we're connecting with producers across the country, which allowed us to build a relationship. It allowed us to share content every day with them as well, which then led to subscriptions in our newsletter. And then consistently building the data and building the consistency of our brand. So you have to stick with the plan and you have to execute it consistently and efficiently. So doing it every day, building the database, seeing the growth, and then seeing the evolution during COVID even, because we had grown what Swine Web is, but then the next phase was COVID and LinkedIn. So with people on LinkedIn, I find in the pork industry, it's built the acceptance. And then during COVID, a lot of the magazines stopped, a lot of the events stopped. And I think people had time to look at how the market changed and looked at, hey, our customers are using this platform. Our customers are getting the newsletter. Our customers talk about Swine Web in the field. And they really saw how some of the print stopped, most of the print publications stopped, and then gained an acceptance to what digital is and what Swine Web is. But it all goes back to the early days of building the infrastructure, update the website every day, build better content, build better relationships, build the database, build the phone number list, and just create a culture and a habit to create an excellence of content. And then if you're consistent and persistent and you stay with it long enough, and that's another key is stick with it, stick with your values, then it's kind of become an accepted norm of way to get information.
Now, Swine Web isn't just a site and a newsletter, there's video and podcasting. Tell me about video and podcasting and how you're using that and how your customers and the producers are accepting it and using it.
Well, the videos and podcasts to me add to the depth of what Swine Web is. So there's like podcasts that have launched just as podcasts. And what I see with Swine Web is the engine of the pork industry with news, markets, commentaries, a Hall of Fame, a newsletter, an app. We are like that go-to news source like where you watch ABC News. So podcasts are part of Swine Web and also Swine TV. So we host a variety of different podcasts from Kansas State University, Barn Talk. We host a bunch of these podcasts to provide diversification to our audience of the depths of what's out there. And then we also host a podcast. We have CEOs of the industry, Swine Leaders Live. We had an In Swine Conversation podcast and we have different podcasts about ag tech, feed, and things like that. And I think it's a component of what adds to what Swine Web is. You'll go to Swine Web and get everything. And then within that ecosystem, you can listen and learn to a podcast or our Swine TV to me is more the video content when we're in the field doing videos, doing interviews at the World Pork Expo, doing live video interviews with clients. I consider that the TV component and then the podcast is more the audio, but it just adds more diversity to what